Yep. Hi, Paul. Good morning. How are you doing?
Morning. Yeah, I'm doing good. The weather's good in England, so that's always a good and a rare occasion. So yeah, I'm doing good.
It's been hot in England for the last few days, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we had like the hottest day I think ever in history. So we had it like 40, 43, I think at the top. We had like, in Europe at the moment, they got fires and stuff like that. I've never seen it in England, so we had it. But yeah, I know that's like a normal summer in
Israel.
like a normal summer in Israel.
That's true. That's true. I'm in Israel and it's totally normal here. Well, I mean, not like every day is 40, 42 degrees. We have 32, 36, but yeah, definitely we have days with 40 as well. Yeah.
So it's good.
Just to share with whomever is listening to this live chat, I recently found you through another friend, and I was so happy to talk with you, Paul, because you have amazing knowledge about retail, and it's like, very similar to experience that I had in the USA with retailers, but you had that experience in UK and in the European market, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, to give you a bit of background, the way that the way I started a business with my brother in 1999, and it was really, I guess it was at a moment when, I suppose, for want of a better word, the white box was created around that sort of time. So we were focusing on the retail environment. So anything that anything that you put into the store, so mannequins, shop fittings, visual merchandising, props, anything like that, we were bringing in, and we started literally from the beginning, which was unusual at that time. We were bringing it in from China, and we were introducing it into the UK market. So early on, we had clients like Marks and Spencer's, Next, who were all beginning, who had been around for say 10 years, but they were really beginning to expand the white box, and they were going from maybe 300 to 600 in their fleet. That became a normal thing. It was over a lot of years, but yeah, we gained a lot of success from that, and then we developed kind of like doing it in a bespoke way, which no one was doing it sort of 5-6 years later. So for instance, we specialized we had a part of the business, a design part of the business that specialized in designing window displays. So we would go into H&M, we would design, we would work with their designers, say for a Christmas window, they might have a stylist in or whatever the theme would be, which we would start working their Christmas windows in January.
Right.
So then,
like 12 months ahead.
Yeah. So then what we would do is we would get it signed off with the retail designer, creative directors, etc. And then what we would do then is obviously we would replicate it then, and at their height, I think they had maybe 35,000 windows worldwide or something crazy like that, maybe slightly less. But
hold on, just for our understanding, for the viewers' understanding, and for my understanding as well, you're talking about a very progressive stage in your business with H&M, with Marks and Spencer. By the way, I worked with Marks and Spencer like 5-6 years ago. It was amazing. But how did you ever started to work with them, which is the biggest question I think people are asking themselves?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, what you're doing is as an entrepreneur, I guess what you're doing is you're listening for a need. Okay. So initially we were just supplying garment rails, mannequins. Yeah. But then we started to, so from talking to one kind of department, they were saying, yeah, okay, we like having that mannequin in the window, for instance, but we want someone to come into Marks and Spencer's and we want the brand reflected, say, for instance, in that mannequin. Can you do it? Can you do a bespoke mannequin? This is so for instance, they would show us a shoot they'd done. Can you do something similar to that? And then we started seeing that no one else was really doing that bespoke kind of window display. It was all kind of standardized sort of back in the sort of early 2000s. So I saw that need, and then I created a design department, you know, brought in some retail designers.
And how did you touch base with them on the first place?
With Marks and Spencer's?
Yeah.
Telephone.
Just like that. Just picked up the phone, called the main office.
Taylor, I still do it now.
Really?
I still do it now. Yeah, it's, I mean, I believe, of course, there are other ways to do it. Of course, you've got obviously email, you've got social media, you know, of course, there's other channels that I use, but sometimes that's the best way. You've got to go in direct. Right. Yeah.
And you just call the head office asking who's the buyer, you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
The easiest way to do it these days, I find, is actually use LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a fantastic tool if you use it correctly. And of course, as you know, you start from using it that way. There are many other ways that you can use LinkedIn to scale that kind of operation up these days. But yeah, I mean,
LinkedIn is heaven. Like, you know, there's so many opportunities out there in LinkedIn. People don't get it.
No, people don't get it. It is the most incredible tool. It costs money, but it's worth it. You get, you know, I've never not got that return on the investment. And as I say, you can scale up, but I still find that still personal, when it comes to business, personal, you know, that personal relationship, which of course it's difficult, but you know, I developed a hard shell over the years. Yeah. And I've met all different types of gatekeepers that try and throw me off left, right, and center. And also, you know, when our business grew, at one stage, we had offices in about 9 to 10 countries, and they were small sales offices where we had boots on the ground. I was training the sales forces in my methods of how I used to get in with people. You know, you can actually template it and give people a methodology and how to do it. I mean, I'm a great believer in scripts. Not everyone's a believer in scripts. And my argument against people that don't like scripts is, yeah, very obviously, when you go and watch an actor, they've got a script, but they're just as believable as, you know, if they weren't an actor. You know, you buy into it. So, and it de-risks the whole kind of like process as well. So, yeah, that's how I would make contact. And also, you know, we all have.
Were you able to maintain this kind of relationship? Like, for instance, if you went to the mannequin buyer and you got in touch with them and running some few orders, and then next, if you wanted to pull the string and get to other buyers of the same company, would that be any of help that you already know someone there?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, you've got to know, you know, one of the skills of being a good sales development person is networking always. You know, one of the first lessons that I ever learned, some guy taught me back when I was in my 20s, said to me, you never leave a meeting without booking the next one, or at least getting an opportunity from it. If you can't book the next one, you try and get a contact. So I think absolutely, you've got to always be, as a front person, you've always got to have that awareness about you know, what, and also going into a meeting, I think I used to prepare. So what do I want to get out of this meeting? I mean, it took me a couple of years to kind of get into that vein, but you've got to know what you want to get out of that meeting. So you know, you wouldn't get in the car and say, you know, just drive. You would say, I want to go from A to B. Right. And yeah, sometimes it can be, I want to get a yes, or I want to get the next meeting, or I want to be introduced from them, you know, to the shop fitting department, whatever it might be. I always go, and I still do it now. I write a little list of all the things that I want to achieve in the meeting, all obvious stuff. But yeah, those relationships, again, when you get into these big organizations, answering another part of your question, you really are only as good as your last job, because you know, if you mess it up, your credibility is gone. Even if you know, you've had a long relationship with them, you got to be very, very careful, and you got to be transparent, and you got to tell them the truth. Yeah, you got to, or you got to keep the relationship is absolutely key in developing them. I mean, look, H&M, you know, at one stage was worth millions and millions of pounds, but that began from one campaign which we did, which was £5,000 or whatever, and that's how you have to build it organically, you know.
Right.
I mean, they're all.
I'm going a little bit back. What is
Yeah,
what is your background, if you can tell me?
My background is just, I've always liked to buy and sell and create businesses, you know, since even when I learned to drive at 17. I know my father started in a street market, and he used to supply street markets, you know, like, I don't know if I have them in Israel. They have them. I'm sure they have them in Israel. But I used to buy from him. He used to have garment rails, the covers for the market stalls, plastic bags. So I used to chuck them all and buy them. I used to, you know, my dad's a hard guy to do a deal with, but I used to do a deal with my dad, put them in my back of my car where the seats went down, and I used to go and sell them in the street markets over the weekend, and used to make, you know, as a 16, 17-year-old, a couple of £100 sometimes, and then, you know, reinvest it in stock.
It's funny. It's so similar to my story. Like, how did I reach to that, you know, side of trade in my career? Really, really similar. But this is for another conversation. So, okay, you started to approach them, and then you work with them. And let me understand, you were or are still relying on production that you do yourself in China, or on existing goods from other brands? How do you manage with that side?
Well, I'm in a kind of, I say it's a lucky position, but basically what happened, I sold the business in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously at that moment, retail was in a crazy situation because of the pandemic and stuff. So I ended up helping a lot of the retailers with the problems that they had. And I maintained my relationship with them, which is why we're talking. I've maintained my relationship with them. But on the flip side, on the third party supplier side, obviously everyone wants to get in touch with me and says, you know, oh, you're in the UK, you're in Europe, let us, you know, represent us. Now, as much as I know that it's important to have a representative, I'm very fussy about the factories and the suppliers that I recommend to my clients now. So actually, I'm on the other side. I'm working for the client now, and I'm really focusing. You know, when in terms of the environment, the retail environment, I focus on sustainable products only, and I focus on technology products as well. So apart from that, and you know, so I am not just focusing on China, because there's one or two factories in China I still recommend to my clients, but also Prague. We had buying offices in Prague, so I've got a massive network in Prague, Turkey, Poland. So also, and obviously UK, I know a lot of people. So if I have quick stuff that I need to get done, I work on that. So yeah, I have all over the world. I have different suppliers. I mean, again, going back to the global players. So we used to do a lot of work for Coach,
mm-hmm.
and obviously H&M. Now, if you're creating something for them, a window set for them, say, you can't just create it all in China. You have to create for the Asian market, you have to create for the European market, and you have to create for the, say, US market and South American market. So we used to have to get that item or those items made, but in different factories making the same thing in different areas of the world, so that they were very strong on their carbon footprint. So of course I developed a huge network of suppliers. So I've got suppliers all over the world that can do crazy things. And again, when you're dealing with the retail and props, and you get asked some you get asked for some. I've done some crazy things, for retailers, like 12-foot dinosaurs with tails that move.
And tell me, right, to your estimation, I know it's not a number that is easy to pull out of the head, but in your estimation, how many different chain stores there are, for instance, in the UK? We start with the UK, we go to Europe.
Well, that's a tough question. I'll tell you one thing: a lot less than there were 2 years ago. Yeah. Right. But there's still loads. In my opinion, you've still got retail. You've got a bank of 400 or 500 here easily, of the big, of big guys. But then look, Arcadia disappeared. Now Arcadia, which was Topshop, Topman, Miss Selfridge, Dorothy Perkins, can't think of the fifth one, but that's a lot of stores. That was 1,100 stores, 1,200 stores that disappeared. Okay, obviously some of those have got reutilized, but not all of them. Topshop had 214 Oxford Street, which was one of the most famous stores in London. That's closed now, although IKEA have bought it, and that in a year's time they're set up there.
And I believe that you are focusing, if it's out of the UK, on West European side, right? Because as far as I know, the East European side is maybe easier to work with in terms of getting your foot in, but the price level is a different story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we used to work with a lot of retail designers, big companies, and they would recommend us. So they would design a store for a big group, and obviously the main thing is with the big group, they would approve the design, but they would want to get someone in to say, well, how much is this actually going to cost, and how would it be done? So they would introduce us in. So the point I'm getting to is towards maybe from maybe 2010 onwards, for that last sort of 5-6 years, we were getting recommended to do a lot of work in Eastern Europe, because there's chains in Poland, there's chains all over Eastern Europe, but it's so hard to be competitive there.
Yeah.
You got to work on small margins, and obviously you're working on smaller margins, something goes wrong, you have a problem.
Speaking on margin, like normally if you have, for instance, if you would sell a mannequin, let's say, just for example, well, mannequin is not a good example because this is not something that they sell themselves, but let's take a product, whatever, a dress or whatever it is, and if the MSRP, the retail price, would be, let's say, $100, what would be the price that you offer as a wholesale price to the retailer?
If the retail price, the wholesale price would be probably less 25%, less 30%, something like that. Oh. That anything like merchandise is anything up to 300%.
Mm-hmm. They're working from the States, because in the States there's a formula of like half of the MSRP would be price, and then if you go to the off-price retailers, it's going to be even less than that. So you have to go 60 or even 70-75% off.
I know it's 50% in the States. Yeah, I know. Right. Here it's bigger margins. And on the retail stuff, the retail environment stuff, some of the margins are big, but again, you get the Chinese suppliers come in and they erode the margin. So then you've got to look at, are you going to follow the price downwards, or are you going to go into more niche products, more luxury products? And that's where, if we're talking, let's say, for instance, mannequins, that's where we ended up going, because the Chinese guys came in, and I don't know, we were selling a mannequin, say anything from $250 downwards. Yeah. But then they came in, they're selling it for $100,
Wow.
We then increased our prices and went to $350, but it was a designed, bespoke, very creative mannequin,
Right.
which is where, that you have to decide on that business model.
Right. I mean, I know it's different right now in China, but I remember almost 20 years ago when I reached out the first time when I arrived in China, and I couldn't understand why everything goes, with so many mistakes in the production, and I was like freaking out. And then the guy that was working with me was a guy from Hong Kong. He was like, he had the perspective of not being Chinese, but being Chinese that is from,
Yeah, Hong Kong, it's big difference.
Outside. Exactly. And he told me something very interesting that I cannot forget. He tells me like that: listen, if you give the factory in China 1,000 shirts, yellow shirts to produce, and they start to produce, and after 900 pieces, they run out of the yellow thread, they would bring a red thread, because that's what they found. And that's not the whole thing. The whole thing is that they think it's okay. They don't see any problem with that.
No,
that's the difference between, obviously, it's much more progressive right now. You can do like whatever, you can do satellites in China. It doesn't, there's no limit, but the state of mind is a little bit different. And that's why I think when they approach the European market and you approach, it's a whole different approach, of a product versus a design. See what I'm saying? Like,
100%. I mean, we had in China, we had 40 people sitting in an office. Yeah, obviously there were different departments. There was procurement, there was design, but there was a huge quality control. You have to have your own, you have to have your own quality. Obviously talking about something different, but you have to have your own quality control people. Even if you'll go to any factory, and I've been to thousands of them, they will go through with you in detail what their procedure is, how the quality checking works. And that doesn't mean that they don't do it, but you understand that if that retailer gets one piece or two pieces that are with a red thread, that's your credibility gone. And again, if the margins are tight enough, you're in trouble. Right. So you've got to be it's better to spend on the people that you have in China doing the quality control. There are third parties that you can use, but it's absolutely key, because I obviously learned all my lessons the hard way, unfortunately.
Like everyone has. So this session is meant to be like, more or less half an hour, and I'm sure that we're going to have more sessions because this is interesting. But I do want to ask you a question. Like, suppose that I have a brand, micro brand, 10, 15 SKUs, nothing crazy. And I sell in the States, but I sell also in Europe. If I sell in Europe as well, like I have inventory and samples available in a warehouse in whatever, UK, Germany, France, whatever it is, will that be proper to approach Paul, to approach you and say, hey, I want to expand with these products into the retail? Is this something that you do?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I do. I've got a lot of different contacts within that. We spoke about these days the buying departments and everything shrunk, so it's much more mobile inside these retailers. So it's absolutely something that I can do. It's not a problem.
Absolutely. So I'll have to add on the comments. I have to tag you or somehow. We'll find out. All right, awesome. Well, there's so many other things we still have to talk about, and I believe this is like a first session out of a series of sessions, because not only I have more questions, I want to hear you more, and I believe that others as well. But also, I had a nice podcast like 2 weeks ago, and the guy is very talented. He's been in business for many years. He has quite similar life story like me, but I ended up working with retailers, and he ended up working on Amazon, and he's been on Amazon since 2011, which is quite a while. So we thought about it, and we realized that it's fun and good to talk about different issues, online, offline, retail businesses, and so forth. So I think maybe next session we can, you know, join.
I would love to. Yeah, I would love to talk about, you know, I'm sure everyone who's in retail here hears every day. I had a conversation yesterday, actually with an Israeli guy, who said to me, retail's dead. Yeah. And he gave me all the reasons. And, you know, when I walked away from him, maybe whatever, after our coffee finished, 45 minutes later, I think I talk, I will always listen, but retail's far from dead. Retail is a very, very exciting place to be at the moment. Not without its pain. I'm not underplaying the pain that's there, but it's it's going to be a very exciting space. So right. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, ignore what I know about numbers. I've been in a conference, like a very big conference. I think there were like around 1,000 visitors there a month and a half ago. And there were a few stages. And one of the stage, there was a guy that I know him. I even work with him. And surprisingly, he was bringing up numbers of retail, you know, brick and mortar versus online, saying that in the States, the online channels, all of them together are not more than 12 or 13%.
That's right.
That means that the brick and mortar is more than 85%, 87%, which is like, you know, you talk to like 9 times bigger market than what you have online, although the online is amazing. It's not I'm not saying it's not.
No.
Yeah.
One thing you got to remember, you know, and we can talk about it, it's just a channel. That's what it is. It's just a channel. You can't, you know, just like brick and mortar is, just like QR codes are, just like YouTube is, just like all these other things. It's just a channel, and you know the key is delivering on those channels. But yeah, we can talk. I'll talk about that one next time. It's a good conversation.
Yeah,
retail is very much alive.
Definitely. Paul, thank you so much for having for being with me today and for, you know, giving all this information. For me, it's very fascinating and exciting. I'm gonna stop, you know, I'm gonna stop the live right now, and we're definitely gonna be back to there. So thank you so much for today. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks, Taylor.